Hari Om, Pranam, and welcome everybody to our podcast with the Puj Sadhvi Bhagwati Saraswati ji. It is my honor to give a brief bio and background of Mataji. Sadhviji is a renowned spiritual leader and motivational speaker based at the Paramarth Niketan in Rishikesh, India. Originally from Los Angeles and a graduate of Stanford University with a PhD in neuropsychology, Sadhviji has lived on the banks of the sacred Ganga River in the lap of the Himalayas for more than 25 years now, engaged in spiritual service, wisdom teaching, sacred action, and deep spiritual practice. Sadhviji is the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, an international interfaith organization dedicated to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. She's also the president of Divine Shakti Foundation, a foundation that runs free schools, vocational training programs, and empowerment programs. She is the director of the world famous International Yoga Festival at Paramarth Niketan Ashram, Rishikesh, which has been covered in a lot of prestigious international publications and has been addressed by both the Prime Minister and Vice President of India. Sadhviji oversees a variety of humanitarian projects, teaches meditation, lectures, writes, counsels individuals and families, and serves as a unique female voice of spiritual leadership throughout India and the world. Sadhviji has received numerous national and international awards and recognition for her work with water, sanitation, and hygiene, as well as women's upliftment and empowerment, including from the Cabinet Minister of Water Resources, Government of India, as well as from the Ambassador of the United States to India. She was most recently awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the US President Joe Biden for her lifelong commitment to volunteer service. With such an amazing background, it is truly our delight and honor to welcome you, Mataji, to grace us with your insights. And I move ahead by giving just a small background of what we are about. So the Vedanta Study Circle was started about a couple of years back to provide a platform for all serious seekers on the path of Vedanta to get together, learn, share their knowledge, and to uplift each other in their spiritual journey. In our study circle, we have members from all over the country join us. There are people who have studied Vedanta from different lineages and different teachers and are unified with the common goal to put Vedanta into practice for upliftment of oneself and betterment of the society. We organize regular in-person retreats as well as virtual Zoom sessions with spiritual gurus and Vedanta teachers from around the globe. The goal is to truly understand and have the eternal light of Vedanta illumining our path and our daily lives while contributing positively to the society we live in. Mataji, we welcome you to start today's podcast with telling us a little bit about your journey, starting from Los Angeles.
Sure. First of all, it's just such a blessing and such a joy to be together with you all. And this is what we need. This is the key to all of that, which is going to bring us the joy, the peace, the meaning, the real success in life. So I'm so happy to be with you all and commend you all that in the midst of not only busy schedules, but in the midst of a a culture, a society that is so focused on indoctrinating us into believing that really all we should want is to have more and acquire more and attain more, that actually you have the clarity and the deep connection to know that it's not about a collection of more and more, but it's actually about a connection to the truth that brings us the real success and the real joy and the real meaning. So I'm so happy to be with you all. My journey is really a journey of grace. I would love to take credit for it. I would love to say that I had prayed to the divine to show me something that was deeper, that was more, that was higher. But I didn't know. I didn't have any idea that anything deeper or higher actually existed. I grew up in Los Angeles, quite literally in Hollywood, hence the Hollywood to the Himalayas title of my memoir. I literally grew up in Hollywood with all of the prosperity and privilege and opportunity and access and education and all of the things that we're told in this culture you need to be happy. And I had all of that, and everybody I knew had all of that. And yet, something really deep was missing. But we didn't know what it was. We didn't even know that it was something that could be found. It seemed like this was just kind of the package deal of life, that you suffer, you have challenges, you have struggles, and then you have nights of really good pizza and ice cream and parties and time with your friends. And that as long as you had a good enough balance of those things that brought temporary enjoyment, you could learn to manage your life. You could learn to balance your life. You could learn to overcome the angst that so many of us felt with, you know, a good shopping trip or a good pizza or a nice movie or a good party or whatever it was. And at 25, I went to India with a backpack, quite reluctantly, actually, I have to admit. I did not even have the deep spiritual clarity to be consciously drawn to India, but I was an avid traveler and had traveled quite a bit throughout Europe, in England, in South America, across the US. And I was a very strict vegetarian and had been a vegetarian since I was a teenager. And what I found was a lot of trouble finding pure vegetarian food in so many places I went all over the world. And I had learned that Indian restaurants were the one place, no matter where I was in the world, that I could actually get pure vegetarian food. So, as embarrassing as it is to admit this now, because I've been in Rishikesh now almost 30 years. September will be 29 years since I've been there. And it's so embarrassing to admit that actually I went just because I really liked the food. But this is why I say it's a journey of grace, because clearly the universe had a plan. Clearly there was a destiny unfolding that I just had to say yes to. I didn't have to manufacture it. So we come to India. I open up a big guidebook, a Lonely Planet guidebook in Delhi, and say Rishikesh. And it was just like that. It was immediate. It felt casual. Rishikesh was relatively close to Delhi, easy to get to. I was always a nature person, and so Rishikesh had this beautiful river. I didn't even know that the Ganga was sacred or holy. I just knew it was a beautiful river the beautiful mountains of the Himalayas. Again, I didn't know they were sacred. I didn't know they were the land of the sages and the saints and the rishis and the yogis. I just knew mountains and river. So it sounded like a nice place to go and to begin our Indian adventure. And when I got to Rishikesh, after arriving and putting our bags down in the hotel, I said, I'm going to go down to the river and put my feet in the river. I was hot, I was tired, we had traveled all day, come across the Ganga, and I just thought, let me freshen up on the banks of the river. And I get down to the waters of Ganga, and I look out over this river that I did not know was the mother goddess. And suddenly I was gifted with this extraordinary experience of being in the presence of the divine. Suddenly it was like that which had seemed objects to me, that which had seemed distinct, separate, inanimate objects, or even animate objects, people. Suddenly, every single thing was just pervaded by, infused with this presence of the divine. It began as I looked out over the sacred Ganga, but then as I turned my head, it didn't matter what I was looking at. There was this presence of the divine in it all. And it knocked me quite literally to the ground in tears. And as I turned my vision inward, what I found was this experience of being not separate from that pervasive divinity. And if you had said to me an hour earlier, you are divine, I would have laughed. I would have, been wondering sort of what billboard you were reading off of or what platitude you were trying to just make me feel better with. It would have seemed to me completely incredible, like not believable. And not even real, not even serious. And yet suddenly there I was having this experience of being one with this presence of the divine. And it was the first time. I was 25. And as you mentioned in the introduction, I had had all of this top education. I had graduated from Stanford. I was in the midst of getting a PhD in pediatric neuropsychology. And I really thought that I knew something. And yet, clearly on this most fundamental level, I had absolutely no idea who I was, what the universe was. And suddenly, here was this experience of realizing that I was not lacking. I had always thought that I was lacking in some fundamental way, that I was not good enough or worthy enough or smart enough or responsible enough, or all of these ways that so many of us, when we're raised, we're told, you're irresponsible or you're lazy or you're this or you're that. And things happen in our life that make us feel like we are not lovable or that we're not worthy of love or that we are somehow fundamentally damaged or not enough. And I certainly had had those experiences in my life. And then suddenly, here was this moment that just literally obliterated everything that I had previously thought about myself and gave me this experience of knowing that I was one with the divine. So it was obviously the most powerful, transformative experience of my life and made me know that that was where I was meant to be. And it's obviously a much longer, beautiful story, but that was, September will be 29 years. And I've basically been in Rishikesh for the last 29 years now.
Wow. That's truly amazing, Mataji. Thank you for walking us through, what we can only think of as a launch and a junction of transformation that happened at this stage in your life. I was wondering, now that when you look back at it, Sadhviji, after being there for 29 years, as you mentioned, what do you attribute the power behind that transformation that happened when you stood alongside and then in the presence of the Holy Ganga River? What do you think really happened then when you look at it now? And what does Ma Ganga mean to you today?
Beautiful. So, what happened was grace. You know, the experience that I had is an experience of truth. And so, in a way, it's tragic that we wonder, oh my God, what happened? Right? I mean, we should wonder what happened when we forget the truth. Because when we forget the truth, that's when actually something has happened. In a perfect ideal world, recognizing, realizing, experiencing the truth would be the most automatic, obvious thing. And anything else would be something that would lead us to say, oh my God, what happened? Like, how did you fall into this illusion? How did you start to identify as your body or your role or your story? But unfortunately, we live in a world where it's the opposite, where the ignorance and the identification and the illusion is normal. And oh my God, she had a moment of truth. What happened? So it's a bit backwards, but I really take it as grace.
Mm-hmm.
It's that which through our practices of meditation, through our practices of jnana yoga, of bhakti yoga, of karma yoga, through the guru's grace. I mean, I know that I at that point I had not yet met my guru, but when I met him about a week later, it was so abundantly clear to me that his grace was at work, even though I had not yet actually met him, but that there was a power of his grace that picked me up out of my life in California and brought me to Rishikesh, brought me to Paramarth Niketan, brought me to his shut-in, to his refuge, to serve, to learn, to be transformed. So a lot of the grace is the grace of the guru and the grace of Mother Goddess Ganga, the grace of the capital T truth. I mean, think about it just for a moment from a purely human perspective. If you're trying to explain some very deep aspect of you to someone else and they're not listening, it's really frustrating. Like you try in from this way, you try in from that way, and you say, no, 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 listen, like I really want you to understand. This is important to me. I want you to understand who I am. I want you to understand what I'm saying. And if they don't understand in one way, you'll try again. Maybe you'll try a different time. Maybe you'll confiscate their phone first. You know, you'll do all of these things that you have to do to get someone's attention so that they can actually hear and know that truth of you that you want to share with them. And then you think, okay, imagine, I mean, we know that we are not created by the divine just. We are created of the divine. We know we're not separate from the divine. So if you imagine that internal feeling that we have to be seen, to be known, to be understood, it seems to me that the divine must also on some level have that yearning to be seen, to be known. The capital T truth would want to be known, to be seen. And so, you know, wouldn't have human emotions of frustration and anguish when we don't, but certainly would utilize the energies of the universe to help us see, help us understand. So I take it like that. And just, I feel so extraordinarily blessed to have had that happen. But what I've seen over the years is it's really available. It's
Mm.
available with a willingness and an openness to let go of who we think we are and what we think we need and what we think the truth of ourselves is, because that which blocks us from the divine is our stories and our attachment to our stories. And so, if we are prepared to let those go and to let go of the ego and let go of the false identification, it's there.
And how do you
I
look
just
at?
one quick second. I'm so sorry. I just noticed my computer is saying that the battery is dead, and I'm just looking over there and realizing it's not plugged in. Let me just quickly go plug it in. 1 second.
No worries, Mataji's.
Okay, I'm back. It's
Plugged in.
it's a beautiful reminder, because the divine power source is there. It's exactly what we were talking about. That source is there, but if we're not plugged in, connected, we don't benefit. So,
Wow. Yes.
so the universe
Truly.
has sent us an exact perfect example.
Yes, Mataji, indeed. So I was happy to hear all the details that you just gave right now about the fact that, we shouldn't be surprised that something happened because that's our true nature. We should, in fact, look at it from the other side. And in that context, I'm now, wanting to know more about, since you're right in Rishikesh, in the lap of the Ganga and everything. How do you perceive the river Ganga, and why does she have the
Mm,
special status in the scriptures, in the Indian Puranas, and just your own experience, at a
yeah.
how is it?
Ganga is the mother. Ganga is the mother goddess. Being with her feels like you are truly in the lap of the mother.
Mhm.
There is a nourishing, a nurturing of her energy, not only of our physical bodies, but of the heart, of the mind, of the deepest aspect of the soul, that from my experience, we have the opportunity in her lap to experience that self as soul, to be able to let go of the stories, of the drama, of the ignorance, of the attachment that keep us from experiencing the fact that we are soul, that we are divinity. She's the giver of liberation, moksha dene vale. But as we always remind people, it's not just after you die. People come from all over the world to immerse the ashes of their loved ones, that they will get moksha.
Mm.
But here's a beautiful remembrance, is that the body is not the problem. I've never heard of anyone who didn't attain moksha because they had an elbow, or they had a knee, or they had, an earlobe or a collarbone or something like that. It's not the body that's the problem. Our bones, our muscles, our skin, our blood, these things don't keep us stuck. What we're taught and reminded is man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. The mind is the key.
Mhm.
The key to our bondage, the key to our liberation.
Mm.
And so, what Ganga gives us is the opportunity to be free of the games of the mind. It's not just you drop the body and then the last bits of your burned body are offered to Ganga, and so now you're going to be free. those aspects of the mind, that subtle body, that sukshma sharir, they travel with us from lifetime to lifetime. So if we have not found freedom
Mm.
in our mental, intellectual bodies, if our man, buddhi, ahankar, if these aspects are not purified, you can let go of the body, but you're just going to get another one. And so Ganga gives us this incredible blessing to actually be free, not from the body, but in the body.
Wow. Mhm.
And if we offer to her that which keeps us stuck, anger, ego, grudges, temptations, attachments, expectations, illusions, false identifications, histories, personalities, like the whole package deal. If we are able to really offer her that, what I have found personally in my life, and I've seen in so many people's lives, is she takes it.
Mhm.
She takes it. If you offer it openly, willingly, with surrender and devotion, she takes it. And
Mhm.
then we become free.
So would it be something like washing off your karmas and freeing you in the moment when you offer it all to her?
So, yes, as in, I know that the teachings tell us that she frees us from the past, you know, the karmas that we've done, the karmic repercussions that we had coming our way. The dilemma for me is I couldn't say to you with 100% reliability because I don't have a felt sense of knowing, oh, these are the karmas that I did in a past life
Mm.
and these were the karmic fruits that I was going to get and now I'm not getting them. I don't claim to have that degree of clairvoyance
Mm.
into past lives, future of this life, to know what I have been spared by Ganga's grace in terms of my karmic unfolding. But what
Mhm.
I can tell you is that I have had very clear, very distinct experiences of being freed of the way that I'm stuck in the present moment in terms of the anger that I have held, the pain that I've held, the grudges that I've held, the way that I have identified myself based on things that have happened to me, based on my personal history, based on the chemical and electrical patterns of behavior in my brain that we call emotions or memory or thoughts or personality. That's the stuff that we are intimately and acutely aware of on a minute by minute, moment by moment, day by day basis of our lives. And I know that she has freed me of so much of that because I've watched it happen. I've walked into the river burdened by my story, burdened by anger and grudges and fear and pain. And I have emerged from that river free of that
Ah.
in offering to her.
So it is a direct experience, or as we will call, aparoksh anubhuti of what you
Abs-
experience.
Absolutely. And it's her grace. She's the mother. That's what mothers do. They
Truly,
take our pain.
truly, truly. And you mentioned about all these things that hold us back. It's the tapes that run, and ego is a big part of it, which is closely connected to anger and all the other negative tendencies that creep up in the mind. And I was listening to one of your talks that you've given in India, and I was struck by the beauty of what you said, that it's probably not the best idea to fight the ego or beat it down. That's probably not the most intelligent thing to do. A more lasting thing would be to learn to release the ego versus fighting it or beating it down. Would you please elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, sure. So it's really a bit of just a semantic difference, but I think it's an important semantic difference because the way we speak to ourselves becomes the way we think, it becomes the way we feel, it becomes literally the Vatavarana, the environment inside our own minds. And when we talk about annihilating the ego or conquering the ego, vanquishing the ego, as you hear in a lot of spiritual conversations, the intention, of course, is perfect. Yes, we want to be ego free. We should not be ruled by or chained by our egos. The dilemma is when I say to myself, okay, today I'm going to war with my ego. Well, who's inside my brain listening to me say that?
Mhm.
The ego, right? I mean, it's not like I could have a private conversation in my own mind and the ego's not going to hear. The ego's listening to that conversation in which I say, okay, today is the day we are annihilating the ego.
Mm.
And what it does is it creates conflict inside. But on a deeper level, also, what I have found is that the ego is amazing and it's
Mhm.
incredibly insidious and it will adapt itself like a chameleon to play whatever I think I'm looking for. So if I say, okay, today is the day I'm annihilating my ego and I'm going to just anchor in truth. Well, then it seems to me that the ego kind of goes to its backstage dressing room and it puts on the hat that says truth and it comes back out. And it's like, okay, here I am, the truth. You're still worthless and useless and irresponsible and you're this and you're that. And it's just very good at
Mhm.
playing whatever role it thinks we want.
Masquerading. Mhm.
Absolutely. And so this is where what I have found a more gentle, but for me, effective way is remember that the ego, it's not some virus that somebody has injected into you or that aliens have come down from some other planet while you sleep and have, stuck an ego in your mind so that you're going to be tormented. The ego actually was created within us for our own benefit. The goal of the ego is not to torment us and kill us. The ego is doing what it thinks we need in order actually to survive. The ego is that part of us that has internalized all of what we learned, both explicitly and implicitly, directly, indirectly, in
Mhm.
our early childhoods, in our family of origin, in our education systems, in the cultures we grew up in the media that we were exposed to. And the ego is that is trying to make sense of who we are in relation to the world and to maintain a sense of self that is validated by the world. So, for example, if bad things happen to me,
Mm.
my ego is going to create a sense of self that says, I am not worthy.
Mm.
And as far as the ego is concerned, that's a good thing because, hey, that makes sense. Like, that is why bad things happen to me. Now we have a plausible explanation. I am, at the core, fundamentally unworthy, unlovable, impure. That is why these bad things happen to me. Okay, that's a story. That makes sense. The ego has done its job. So it's important to realize that the ego isn't here consciously to ruin our lives. It's here to give us plausible ways of understanding ourselves, navigating our way through the world in a way that makes sense. The problem is, it's of course telling, I mean, it's making up stories, it's telling lies, it's adopting other people's projections, it's taking things that we hear, that we experience as canon, as scripture, as divine truth, when they're not.
Mm.
And this is where, as we grow, it's so important to be free of the ego, because the ego is the one that's constantly trying to identify us based on physical body, size, shape, color, age, race, religion, history, story, roles, success, etc. And the way to do that, I have found, is to acknowledge the ego, but
Mm.
just not give it the steering wheel, not give it the keys to your car, not give it the reins to your life. Pick your metaphor. But basically, you're not trying to kill it. What
Mhm.
you're trying to simply do is have it stop running your life. So when the ego starts speaking to me, for example, I'll turn to it and I'll say, you know what? Thanks so much for showing up today. Unfortunately, I don't have time. Like, I've got this other stuff going on today. So I'm not going to be able to jump into your drama at the moment. But thanks so much for showing up. Hope you have a great day. And it's just a very kind of sweet, sort of humorous, kind of self mocking in a light type of way of the games of our psyche. Or the ego will show up with some story and I'll turn to it and I'll say, "Ugh, that is a great story. Why don't you find yourself a screenwriter and a producer? Because I'm not going to produce that show. Like that, I'm not going to do that for you. But it's a great story. Sell it to someone else." And just having these conversations with it, I have found, is much more personally empowering than having this battle go on inside between what we deem the good part, the bad part, the light part, the dark part. Instead, it's my true part, and the part of me that's conditioned and programmed based on basically all of the untruths that I have taken in during my life, and is trying to feed me them back.
Mhm.
And I don't want to buy into it.
Mhm.
I've seen that movie. I don't need to see it again. No need for reruns today.
Do not give it the driver's seat and do not make a production out of it from what you just
Yeah.
Madhuri.
Yeah. And
True.
but you don't have to kill it. You don't have to beat it down.
Mm.
You just have to not let it run the show.
Mm. Makes sense. It's also understood that ego or ahankara, as we say, is one of the key divisive forces between humans or in the way of creating oneness. And I heard in another talk of yours, Mataji, that you said that we have to choose love over being right.
Yes.
Right in the realm of the ego comes these two things, and you have to choose one, and you choose love over being right. Could you please,
Absolutely.
could you please give some examples of a situation wherein these two options are there in front of you and you choose love over being right? Because quite honestly, it is something I think a lot of people, especially educated people, people who are in positions of responsibility, struggle with, because our idea of doing the right thing is being right.
Yes.
Now, how do you do the right thing, but not just be right and choose love over and above it?
Beautiful. Well, first of all, remember that choosing love is always the right thing. I cannot imagine a situation where choosing love would be the wrong thing. Now, that doesn't mean that we always do what someone we love wants. If you think about For example, a parent with their young baby on the lap, and the baby is trying to reach for the diya to touch the flame. The parent is going to keep pulling their hand back. No, no. And the kid could scream and yell, but you're never going to give in. You're never going to let that child grab the flame because you understand they'll get hurt. So even though it looks like you're not choosing love in the moment because the child is now screaming and yelling, and, you know, if they're already at an age of verbalization, they say, I hate you, it's not fair. If not, they just scream and yell. But clearly the choice you're making, you have chosen love. So choosing love doesn't mean I'm going to let you get away with something that I know is going to hurt you. Similarly, if you are, let's say you're grocery shopping or you're walking down the street and you see someone harming another person physically, emotionally. I mean, I've intervened in situations where I'll see typically a parent shouting at a young child, sometimes spanking them, something really awful. And I've intervened. And I've said, you know, I know being a parent is so hard, and I know that you must be having a really hard day. And this isn't going to make it any better. This is just passing on anger, passing on pain, passing on violence. And it's not, do not think that people turn around and say, oh, thank you so much for the wisdom. You know, at least half the time, what you get is basically, who do you think you are? Mind your own business, etc.
Turn on to you now. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't think that they all become devotees and fall at your feet and say thank you so much. But what you've done is you've broken a cycle of violence. That person now is going to go home maybe thinking about this rude, random lady who interrupted them. But at least their kid has stopped being abused.
There's a break. Yeah.
Maybe they will, hopefully by God's grace, think about it differently in the future. So choosing love, like in that moment, I chose love. Love for the child, love for the relationship between the parent and the child. But it's not always something that means I'm going to let you do what you want. In loving the highest nature of that parent, I have to stop them from doing something that is not in their highest nature. So it shows up in a lot of ways, but I think in the easiest way, on just an everyday situation, it shows up in our relationships all the time. Our family relationships, our work relationships, relationships with people we don't even know. I'll give you a very recent personal example. The day that we actually came to the Vedanta Society to speak last week in New York, there was a huge parade in New York, and you'll remember that we were a bit late in getting there because all the roads were closed. So after we left, we found out that we weren't going to be able to get back into the building that we were staying in on Fifth Avenue because Fifth Avenue had been closed down. So we went and luckily we got the information in advance. So we were very happy. We went and we sat in the Whole Foods in Columbus Circle and had some nice organic snacks, and they had tables and chairs, and so we were able to just sit and be. But I mention it because when we finally got the message that we were able to get back onto Fifth Avenue and enter the building, it had become a hot day, a sunny day. And so I wanted to go into the restroom and put some sunscreen on my face so that I didn't get sunburned, because I get sunburned very quickly. So there was a long line of people to use the restroom. And I didn't need to use the restroom. I just needed to go to the sinks and the mirror and put the sunscreen on my face. So I walked along the side to get to the sinks. And one woman in line started basically shouting, like, who do you think you are? You can't cut the line. I forget exactly what she said, but it was not nice. And you think most people would respond by essentially saying something like, mind your own business. Who do you think you are? I'm not cutting in line, you idiot. Or whatever else people say, and even worse things,
Reactions, yes.
worse reactions. But because I've made a really conscious and deliberate personal practice of choosing love, I was able not to react, to simply turn around, give her a huge, huge smile, and say, so sorry for any misunderstanding. I'm not actually using the restroom. I just need to use the mirror.
Mm.
Not react to her anger and, false accusation and all of these things. And these are tiny little things, but they happen all day in our life. I mean, you think if I had gone the other way and had turned around and said, who do you think you are? Don't talk to me like that, you idiot, whatever. Well, that would have become the story for my day. And I would have become the story for her day. And each of us, both of us were blessed enough to have the ability to sit in an air-conditioned Whole Foods in the afternoon of a Sunday, right? I mean, you think, what percentage of the population of planet Earth are we so much more fortunate than to have the worst inconvenience being that we have to sit in an air-conditioned Whole Foods rather than enter our respective buildings. And yet, how easy it is to ruin that and lose that in these personal altercations. We see it in families, in the workplace all the time. Someone says something and we react. You're wrong. That's not the way to do it. Don't you know how to load a dishwasher? That's, little nothing things.
And the
File's
job
not in the
moment
right
is
place.
gone.
This isn't done right. And
Yeah.
it's constant. And we are always choosing being right over being in love. And the dilemma is being right doesn't actually get us anywhere. But being in love gets us exactly where we want to go.
The two examples you gave, Mataji, one of intervening when you saw a child being unnecessarily, given an aggressive behavior by a parent that has just got triggered. And the other example where somebody else was triggered and you did not respond in equal measure makes me think, if this be the idea or definition of responding or choosing love, then it would need equal parts courage, as in the first situation, and equal parts restraint, as in the second situation. So it's probably a combination of both these qualities and traits that makes it possible for a human to choose love over being right.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a choice. It's a choice and it's not always easy. And it's important to remember it does not mean that we let the baby grab the flame,
Mm.
because sometimes the most loving thing we can do is say no.
Right, right.
And it's important to remember that love is there in our no's just as much as love is there in our yeses, depending on what the situation is. But that in neither case am I propelled by the ego of I have to be the one who's right. And that's the most important thing.
The last point on this, Mataji, do you really believe that it is possible for most people, bearing, the avatars or the ones that have come and become enlightened very soon? Is it really possible for us to not fight, not beat, but truly release the ego?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, it's not all or nothing. It's not like you're nowhere all along the way and then suddenly you reach and you're in that state. Every moment, every bit of ego that we can free ourselves from, every moment that we can choose love and choose peace and choose truth and, bring our niti meditation into our daily life. Every moment that I can remember, no matter what someone is projecting onto me, that I can remember niti. I'm not that person's projection. I'm not this interaction. I'm not the story. I'm not the role. I'm not the body that I've just caught a glimpse of in the, reflection of the window. I'm none of those things. The more I can do that, even if you don't do it 100% of the time, even if you still forget, if you're doing it 5% of the time, 10%, if you remember 50% of the time, as you go along the way, as you remember more and more, you're freer and freer. Life becomes more and more peaceful, more and more filled with love. And then you're able to share that with other people. And I think ultimately to be channels, to be vessels, vehicles, instruments of love and of truth wherever we go is our highest calling. But we can only do that if we have the experience first within us.
And would you say that is the key note or the key point of your latest book, Come Home to Yourself?
Come Home to Yourself is a book of questions and answers, some very, very specific around the nitty gritties of this human life and dealing with colleagues and bosses and employees and family members and in-laws and neighbors and our own mind and our thoughts and our patterns, and also deep spiritual practices, meditation and yoga and the soul and divine connection and kind of everything that is part of our experience as soul, as Atman in this body, or with this body, associated with this body, everything that is part of our experience as truth, that Sat Chit Anand, that truth of who we are, that fullness of the truth, the existence, the consciousness, the bliss, that fullness. And, having to mow our lawns and take out the trash and get the mail and deal with loud neighbors and run errands and get stuck in traffic and scold employees or get scolded by an employer or whatever it is. And that's really the stuff that the book is made of. It's all of the questions that people from all over the world have brought to satsang in Rishikesh at Paramarth Niketan, and the questions that I find that people ask all over the world when I travel. So yeah, it's all about coming back to who we really are.
Sounds like a wonderful compilation and an entire body of work, Mataji, that you have distilled to offer to anybody that might want to read and get these practical insights as well as a spiritual perspective on what we need to deal with in our daily lives. I look forward greatly to reading it. And I know you mentioned you have some time limit today. So we've just gotten through the first part of our podcast with you, but we'll keep this going. And with your kind blessings, I would finish our podcast for today now with Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So beautiful to be together.
Pranam Mataji again for sharing all that you did with us with so much love. And we hope to hear more from you in our next part. And please stay well till then and hope to connect again by Mother's Day.
Definitely. 100%. So much love. Jai
Gange.
Ma, Jai Gange.